Please welcome Kamran.
Thank you. Thank you, Jane, for that. Sorry, can you hear me at all? Nope, it's not on. Is it on now? Okay, great. Thank you very much, Jane, for that introduction. I'd forgotten that I had a degree in aeronautical engineering, actually. Thank you very much for spending the time today. I'm going to briefly talk to you about the evolution of search and the union with big data. And as I read that title this morning, I realized that it sounded like the sequel to the Harry Potter books, but blame my 11-year-old daughter for that. I co-founded Search Technologies about 11 years ago, just over 11 years ago. And our aim was really to help people get the most out of search. And we've built, over the time, many mission-critical applications in many different use cases. And so today, what I want to talk about is some of the changes that we've seen, having delivered thousands of hours of projects, and as I said, projects to many different customers. But before I get into that, I'd like to just have a show of hands for a couple of questions. The first is, how many people represent organizations today that are actually using some kind of search-based application in their organization, whether it's in KM or e-commerce or any of the other use cases? Great. How many have a big data application inside the organization that's separate from the search? Okay, a few. And then how many have actually blended those two technologies together to help augment one or the other? Okay, just a few there. That's great. That'll help me guide through this presentation as I go through. I have a few slides here that I think will be available afterwards, but I'm going to go through quite quickly. First, I'm going to just introduce you or update you on Search Technologies, what we do and how we do it. And then I want to talk about some of the changes that we've seen in the past decade or so that some have been convenient and some have not been so convenient. Then I want to talk a little bit about three of our customers at a very high level and give you an idea for the kinds of things that they're doing with these technologies. We have been doing a lot of things to try and make implementations easier. It's why we started the company, to help people get the most out of search and now big data. But we've also developed technologies that we think will help do that. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Simplyport, we're an independent search services company that have focused on building applications based around enterprise search in many different use cases. KM is a big one. Listening to the panel there, hearing them talk about silos and finding out knowledge within the organization, we have helped a lot of large organizations, including some of those on the stage here today, that are building knowledge management applications. We feel that search really underpins a good knowledge management application. But you'll see that there's a blend now of search and big data, and that can do some very powerful things, and we'll talk about that in a second. We're over 200 people. We've worked with over 800 customers in many vertical industries, and we've covered pretty much every use case. And we're seeing some newer use cases because of these two technologies coming together. Traditional use cases are knowledge management, corporate portals, e-commerce, publishing, but now we're starting to see precision medicine, fraud detection, and inside the threat applications that we're building as well. If you're wondering why it's all so green and people are in shorts, this is actually our location in Costa Rica. Not our location, but this is where everybody is. It's not our Herndon, Virginia office. And you're all very welcome to visit if you can swing it, by the way. We've grown the company to about $32 million, and I say this only because having started the company with 3 people and grown it to $32 million over 10 or 11 years, I think that this underscores 2 things. One is that we're delivering real value to our customers because we tend to work with them on an ongoing basis. And secondly, we have some really talented people who focus on what is a relatively narrow space, and so we've been able to grow the company very well. So that's us as a company. We've been here a long time. We've got deep search expertise. We've now got deep big data expertise. So we've done this for many customers. So we really know this space very well. So I want to talk about 3 waves of change that we've seen. The first is consolidation. If many of you have probably been in enterprise search or worked with enterprise search platforms for many years, you'll remember that relatively smaller players like Fast and Endeca were acquired by larger companies. So Microsoft acquired Fast in roughly 2007. And at the time, the FAST platform was used well outside of the SharePoint environment. Today, it's very much focused on the SharePoint environment. That created some opportunities for SharePoint people, but it also created some challenges for people who weren't necessarily going in the SharePoint world. Same with Oracle and Endeca. Today, the Endeca platform is not innovating as quickly as it used to when they were an independent company. So this gives rise to some challenges for those customers. Likewise with Autonomy and Vivissimo. So that was the first big wave of change, the consolidation of these companies and the acquisition of these companies, moving them in a different direction. In a similar vein, Google has now announced that they're going to retire the Google GSA, and that's going to happen by 2019. And so many customers will move to the cloud with Google, but again, that's probably going to be focused on the Google Cloud Platform. So it's going to leave, well, hundreds of customers who are going to be looking for an alternative. So that kind of fits in with the first wave of change. The second thing that we saw was the rise of open source. Back in 2007, Solar Lucene wasn't really seen as a practical solution for a large-scale implementation, and Elastic wasn't around. Now, and for the last few years, these two platforms have become super powerful. And there are many, many large applications that we have built and other people have built that are based on these two. The National Archives, the Government Printing Office, the Library of Congress, so there's 3 in the government space, but there are many large commercial customers moving in this space. This is somewhat related to the first change because a lot of companies felt that they needed some independence from commercial companies so that they didn't have to then migrate away from something if it changed, if it got acquired and moved to a different environment. So that was wave number 2. Wave number 3, and possibly the most powerful one, is the coming together of search and big data platforms like Hadoop or Cloudera. That's relatively recent, and I'll let you read these 2 quotes for yourselves, but these 2 really underpin the fact that these 2 technologies are now definitely coming together, and we are now seeing them used almost every single time we build an application. Doug Cutting is the inventor of Lucene and the inventor of Hadoop, and so that's a very powerful statement from him. Darren Stewart is an analyst at Gartner who focuses on the BI space, but now believes that search will be important to that space too. There are 2 ways of looking at search and big data. One is you can use big data platforms to make your search solution more powerful. The other way is to look at search as a way to democratize access to big data, and we'll look at a couple of examples there. So the first example I want to talk about is the Allegis Group. They were actually a finalist for one of the awards today, so congratulations to them. Allegis Group is the largest privately owned staffing company in the US, and they have about 100,000 employees. And to give you an idea of the scale of what they do, every week they talk to hundreds and thousands of people about their career aspirations and where they want to go. Allegis has been involved with search for a long time because it's mission critical for an organization like this. They were originally a FAST customer, and we started working with them many years ago. But they're now moving to an open source-based platform, Elasticsearch, but they're blending that with Cloudera, and we're building an application that will effectively get rid of multiple siloed applications and give them one access point to the information. Now, it's not just simple search. This is simple search when you need it, but it's also search and match. We're building machine learning into the application such that they can take a resume or a job, and they can use that as the entire query. And using the machine learning and search and match, we're able to identify candidates to jobs, which allows their recruiters to come in and find the top candidates that they need to speak to instead of having to go through and search. So that's a big change in the industry, using search and big data together to do search and match. Another area that we're working a lot in is insider threat detection. I'm sure everybody here knows about the Edward Snowden problem, and in the government space, it's a very critical issue to prevent the either malicious or accidental misuse of information. So we're working today with a number of government agencies and also financial services institutions to take search big data and sentiment analysis and blend those things together such that we can monitor inside the firewall what's going on, whether it's emails, unstructured documents. There's one organization that we're just about to go live with who are looking at emails and unstructured documents, but also written documents. There's a lot of OCR that's going on, and we're monitoring all those applications. A third application, one that I really like, is at Seattle Children's Hospital, and I'm going to introduce this as a precision medicine use case, but I'll let Seattle Children's do that themselves with the video.
I'm Rebecca Gardner. I'm a physician at Seattle Children's and part of the Bentown Center for Childhood Cancer Research.
Tell us about the research you've been doing and the results that you've been seeing.
We are doing a clinical trial for patients who have recurrent leukemia. And these are patients who have failed our standard therapies and need new and novel ways of treating their leukemia. We take their T cells and we re-engineer those T cells to be cancer-fighting T cells. They are then given back to the patient. When they're back in the patient, they sort of scour the body looking for any sign of leukemia. When the T cells find the leukemia, they promptly get rid of it.
It almost sounds too good to be true.
Forever, the first patient we ever treated will stay with me in my mind. In the back of your head, you think, oh, I really, really hope this works. And then that day when we found out it worked, it was just pure elation and joy and excitement, and then we've just kept going from there.
Where do you go from here?
Our goal is that we can make this type of therapy available to any kid with a cancer diagnosis. We are hard at work to figure out how we can apply this same technology. How do we reprogram a T cell to recognize a neuroblastoma cancer cell? How do we reprogram a T cell to recognize a brain tumor cell? The thing that gets me out of bed and gets me to work every day is the kids. And to me, it's the best job in the world. If my research is successful, we'll have a world in which pediatric cancer is just a little bump in the road. It'll be, you have leukemia, let's get your T cells, we'll reprogram, give them back to you, and in 3 weeks you can go back to school.
Is that a realistic future?
I really think it's a realistic future. I'm really, really excited about it.
Okay. So yes, it will give us a lot more information in the future about our current health and future risks. But there is a challenge that the scale of the information that's being collected by people like Seattle Children's and other organizations is just enormous. And we put this chart together just to illustrate that, and it's projected that as we do sequence our genomes, it's going to be significantly greater than what you see in any other area like social media or YouTube. So it's a huge amount of information, and they call it the biggest of the big data in genomics. So what we're doing is we are building an application that is ingesting the information that they have internally. Right now we're working on 500 million records, which in this world is tiny. But we're ingesting that into a Cloudera stack. We're using Cloudera search to create the dashboards here using Zoom data to visualize. But search is actually the layer in between that provides the information for the cancer researchers. And that's an important point. We're not talking about data scientists here who are extracting the information using traditional techniques. We're talking about the cancer researchers themselves, who are technical in nature, but not by any means data scientists. And they can now explore this fantastic body of information to help them with their mission. So we love this use case for obvious reasons. So this is really, it illustrates the power of bringing these two technologies together. Just a couple more screenshots here. So finally, what are we doing to make things easier? Search has traditionally been a hard thing. It's why we started the company. You know, people were buying lots of million-dollar licenses and not implementing them and leaving them on the shelf. We started the company to say, hey, let's use those licenses and build something useful. So over time, what we've done is we've built assets, our own assets and third-party assets, and we're now launching what we're calling a search technologies enterprise search stack. And really, it's a loosely coupled, yet somewhat integrated group of products. Some of our own, others open source, others that are just generally available. And our idea is that this stack will enable us to go to a customer, instead of spending a month to 2 months getting things up and running, drop the stack in and start working on the higher level stuff like we're doing at Seattle Children's. In March next year, we're going to be launching that stack inside of Cloudera as parcels. So for those of you familiar with Cloudera, you'll know what a parcel is, but those who aren't, it's essentially creating an application inside the Cloudera stack. So when you have Cloudera, you can then just launch these applications and start to build applications that are as powerful as the ones we've just seen. So my message today is that lots of things have changed. Some have been good, some haven't been good. We're helping people migrate off of platforms that aren't there. Open source is big. It's not the only thing. We work with people like Cinequa, who have a great platform that blends search and big data together. So open source is convenient for some, but not others. But the most important thing is that these two technologies, search and big data, coming together can really allow you to take what you have today to the next level or build some use cases that you probably couldn't have imagined a few years ago. We certainly couldn't. Be happy to answer any more questions. We're at the booth here. Our partners are here too. And if you have any questions about the use cases, feel free to come by. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.